me see if I can figure out how to turn this damn thing on. Okay. I think everything's going. Nice. Alright. Let's start up this tequila game. I don't know how much of the tequila game thing I'm going to get done today because I'm going to talk a little bit about yesterday. We had me and Sarah took Corrupt City to somebody else's channel while they, Portland Game Crafters channel, and I think it's called, well, instead of just making it up, let me look what it's called. It's like Play This or something similar to that. Playtest This. We were episode number 17 on Playtest This. You can find us on YouTube. I will put links, hopefully in this video, in the description, or I'll put it on the YouTube. It's out there. I don't know how important it will be to go check it out, or if anybody cares. I don't know if anybody cares. It sounds sad. Yeah, so we took Corrupt City on there, and it was about an hour teach, about a 2-hour play. We almost finished, so that's not too bad, really, when you consider it's the first game played. I think the playtesters had a little bit of fatigue from the hour teach, and then after the hour teach, playing and not really having a good concept of the game. So I'll be talking about that experience and a lot of the thoughts that I've had today. I don't know how far I'll get in the tequila game. I might have to paraphrase the title with, or paraphrase the title whenever I talk about this game. The episode about playtesting. One of the things I was thinking about is how important it is to say up front what your game goal is. Like, and I've been guilty of this as a play tester, is not accepting what the game's goal is. You know, the designer will come sometimes you'll do a blind play test, and how difficult it is to take all that information as the person that's using the information to better their game, when the people that are playtesting your game don't understand your goal. And it's important because, and this is something I try to stress all the time, is I think designing is easy. Now, I don't think designing really well is easy, and I don't think that all people can be designers, but I think in general, being creative is somewhat easy, or at least it's easy for me. So it's hard to turn that off. So whenever somebody gives me a game, I, like everybody else, like most people that I come across, like to do things that are fun. And what's fun is designing. So it's not that I want to redesign your game and make it my game. It's that it's an opportunity for me to flex and I don't mean flex in the current term where I'm trying to show you that I'm good at this or whatever, but try to, like the traditional flex a muscle. I'm trying to exercise that muscle that shows that I am creative, or I guess maybe it does this dopamine thing in my brain. Like, I like to create. So when I am play testing somebody else's stuff, some of my suggestions may be not necessarily in the vein of stuff that they need to hear. I think back to my earliest work and when I first started showing it to people, my early designs, I showed it to people, and more often than not, they would tell me they would start creating. They wouldn't help me with what I brought. What they started doing is creating on top of what I brought. I gave them an excuse to create. And it was frustrating at the time because I was new and I didn't have a backbone, meaning I couldn't tell them, no, that's not what this design needs. And also, they were causing more problems than fixing. They weren't interested in fixing my problems or what my focus was. It was about what their vision of what I was doing was. So whenever I finally came across someone who was able to just listen to what I was doing and actually help me, it it changed everything. It turned me from a wannabe designer to an actual designer, because then I was not questioning all these new things. I was actually, one process for me is to make something, to create the ideas. The second process is to vocalize those ideas, or to bring those ideas into existence. Once I talk about those ideas, I try to do those in two different phases. First, the creation step, and that's completely in my head. I usually do that when I'm taking a shower, walking through the day, or just bored. I will come up with crazy ass ideas. And I encourage myself to come up with the most crazy ideas. Second part is I tell those ideas to somebody, or I write them down. I bring them into existence, and I'm not trying to be like fucking hippie magic shit. I'm just saying I have to take them from my brain and actually talk about them. Once I talk about them, I start realizing how stupid the ideas are sometimes. Sometimes that's all it takes for me to know that this is a dumb idea, or this idea needs a lot of work, or this is not going to work. I just, like, as I'm speaking it, I realize, oh shit, this is why this has not been done before, or this is why I shouldn't do it. Or here are some of the pitfalls that I have to look forward to if I don't fix these ideas immediately. Okay. So an example of that is, like, I might be, okay, and this is, okay, so I'm just talking now. So I might actually come up with something I've already come up with, or I might be totally free. I'll tell you by the end. Okay, so let's say if I come up with a clown car idea. That's probably too easy. So let's go further. Clown shoe idea. Let's think clowns. Okay, clown makeup idea. I decide I want to make a game about clowns deciding what makeup they want to use. I decide that we'll have like a generic face maybe, and then we'll have the different, eyes and the different mouth and all like that. The problem is that you want to go, let's say in your design, you decide you want to do creepy clown is bad and happy clown is good, or everybody has an agenda. So each piece that you put on a face, let's say that it's divided between left and right, and you're bidding for pieces and you put them on a face. And if you put mismatched pieces, they go towards spooky clown. If they're symmetrical, they go towards happy clown. But there's also the pieces themselves, and let's say matching is not good. You go towards spooky if you go to too much matching colors, or whatever the idea is. It doesn't matter. I'm just making this up on the fly. So you've got spooky clown or happy clown, and you're drafting these pieces that go in the clown face, and the clown is symmetrical is good, non-symmetrical is bad, whatever. Okay, so this idea, let's say first I'll come up with it in my head, and then I go and say to somebody, or I write it down. Usually I go tell somebody, I go say, hey Sarah, check out this idea. You are trying to make clown faces. You're doing happy or mean clowns, and nobody knows your agenda, what you're trying to make. So you're drafting these pieces, and players can try to sabotage you, or you can try to fool them into thinking you're trying to make one kind of clown, but you're actually trying to make another type of clown, whatever. Okay, so as I'm telling them that idea, I start realizing where the pitfalls are at. The way it would work in the past is I would take that to a friend and I would say, hey, this is my initial designing and not knowing myself and my ability to tell people, no, that's not what this design is about. I would tell people, hey, here's my idea. And then invariably they would say, you know what would be cool? And then they would tell me what would be cool. And then I would have to go from me spewing ideas to me intaking ideas. And my brain doesn't work like that. My brain works where I need to just get it out. It's like vomiting ideas. I have to vomit the ideas out of my head. And then once I have a project that's worth keeping, so once do I keep the vomit or not, then I can maybe take advice on adding things or not, but usually not. But anyway, so if in my vomiting ideas, not knowing myself, not knowing how I need to design, I would tell friends, and they would tell me stuff they wanted to add. They were flexing their muscle on how to make design, and it wouldn't get anywhere. I was more confused than when I started, and it made me feel like I couldn't do this because I didn't know the value of what they were telling me. Like, I hadn't designed before. I didn't know, hey, what they're telling me, what do I take the good stuff, or what justifies good stuff? You know, is it going to make people upset when I tell them that was good, but I don't need it, or whatever? So the moment that I found Brian and was able to tell him these ideas, and he took these ideas and all he did was write them down, or he didn't add anything. He just sat there and said, okay, these are your ideas. What then, or what now? And then he would give me his opinion on crazy things I might be saying, and not an opinion that would be like, hey, that's not any good. He would say, well, I don't know about that, or whatever. And that, if I believed in it, I would push back, and if I didn't, I would listen and think, yeah, maybe that isn't good. I need to think about that. It needs to be stronger, so that I know that I need to keep it. If you give me your feedback, and your feedback is just, does that work, or is that really good, or if you tell me these things and I'm not able to push back or give you answers, then I need to come back to the table and restructure those things, or make those things where I've actually have pushback. Everything, I think, when you bring a game to the table, you should be able to push back on any criticism. I'm not saying you should. I just, mentally, you have to have a reason for doing everything. Sometimes the reason is, well, it was in an earlier play test, and you have to fix all those things. That's not a good answer. I'm not saying don't have that answer. I'm just saying recognize when a piece in the game hasn't been tested, or that the only reason it's in the game is because it's always been like that. Those aren't things worth keeping. Those things are worth revisiting and finding out why you're keeping it, coming up with a solid reason. And that doesn't mean that you should keep it if you come up with a good reason. Just because you have a good reason doesn't mean keep it, I guess is what I'm saying. All that means is that you know it's worth existing. Then you can challenge it and take it down, and not because necessarily a better idea comes, or redefine what better is. Better can be, I needed it to be simpler. I needed it to just not exist. I needed it to be much more complex. I needed it to take up time, whatever reason. Everything must be justified for existing. Okay. So anyway, so I'm going back to playtesting. I think when you're playtesting somebody's thing, you should find out how they need you, or what stage of the game that you need help with. It doesn't help to bring a game and somebody is really creative and they start creating on top of your game, or changing key elements to your game because they want to make suggestions on things to rework. Now, I am very hard-headed, and when that was brought to me yesterday, so a couple of things were brought and said, okay, so have you ever tried this, or here's some new ideas. I've been through this process enough, and I have a lot of confidence. It doesn't faze me. I try not to push back against playtesters unless they ask me, why does this exist? And then I might be a little bit forceful. Yesterday, it was getting really late, and I needed the playtest feedback to end sooner, but I still wanted the good feedback, the feedback that I was looking for. So I did push back on a couple of things just so they would know that, like, hey, there's no reason to go over these things because I wasn't going to change. And what I was really basically trying to say is, like, your feedback in this section, you can just skip over it, because I want to give you the mindset that I'm not flexible. Now, the truth is I am flexible, but that's not the piece that I think I need your playtest help with. I need if you're going to help me in this stage, I need to find ease of use. I need to streamline a lot of things. I need to work on stuff that makes this easier to upload into your brain and play, and then also find out what things were hard for you to understand. I don't want you to design on top of it, because I'm not at a stage where I need that. But I mean, if you need to do that, that's fine. And if I have the time, do it all day long, because it doesn't bother me. It doesn't faze me, because I feel very sound in the choices. I can definitely see where if a new designer comes and they're in front of you and you give them they give you these ideas. Let's say I'm putting you in this, like, okay, let's say I am a new designer. You start changing things on top of my design. That's extremely frustrating. Or if I'm susceptible to other people's ideas, I might change something in that realm that you're talking about. That could be good, and it could do better for the game, and it also could do worse. But what it doesn't do is it doesn't get the idea from the designer. Like, it doesn't allow them to express their own idea. So the question is, are you picking a playtester developer who is in a style of a game that you want that influence? Or are you picking just some brandos to give you feedback? If it's the first, that means that, yes, design on top of their stuff. So let's think Rick Rubin. If you were making music in the early days and you took on Rick Rubin was much more of a dictator in the early days, so they say, and his thumbprint was on your music. Now, he might have had the ability to see certain artists that artist is good at what they do. He just needed a smaller thumbprint, but his thumbprint was on there, and it was an assertive thumbprint, and he was trying to make good stuff. But Rick Rubin now is much better at listening to what the artist wants. And, oh yeah, this is just from interviews and for what people say. I don't know this is fact. So he was much better at taking your stuff now and deciding, or giving you influence of how to make you the best you. So that I think is the ideal position to be as a play tester, is a person who's giving feedback, is being the play tester or feedbacker that designer needs at the time. What that means is for you to have a lot of discipline as a play tester. I think you've got to ask the designers lots of questions. What do you need from me? What can I do to help you? And I am guilty of fucking this up. And this is why I'm making this, is because I want to correct myself. It's not a criticism on the people from yesterday, because I'm way too stubborn for it to affect me. But if I wasn't so stubborn, it probably would. And the example I thought about today was, if you brought a person, food chain magnate, today, right now, it was unpublished, they brought it to you, would you be the type of person who starts making food chain magnate into the game that you want to see? Or would you be the type of person who could take this design and ask the designers questions and allow the game to be what it is, but be more of what it is? Because that's what I want. I don't want a mediocre game, and I don't want to take your game and turn it to the average, because what I mean by that is, if I look at your game and I start normalizing things, taking things out and trying to make it like stuff that I'm accustomed to, that might be more status quo type shit. So if it's status quo type shit, then I am averaging your game. I am taking your idea, I'm taking my idea, which is more middle of the road, and somewhere in the middle is an amalgamation, and I'm hoping for the amalgamation. I'm hoping that I help you design this thing that was funky and come more towards the center. And so I am, in my opinion, making your game more mediocre. I'm averaging your inspired moments out. Can I look at your thing and say, okay, this is funky, and accept that it's funky and help you figure out what's more you? Like, is this what you want? Is this good? How did I feel about your thing? How does it make me as a player? Not try to redesign it for you, because that's not my job. My job, or it can be if you want that from me, but usually what you're going to want from me is to make you the better you. So to make you the better you, I have to find that out. What do you need from me? And usually it's going to be, how does this make me feel? Where were the hangups? What did I have a hard time understanding about what you were doing? Not to average out your game, not to make the game more of what I'm used to. And there was a lot of that yesterday. There was a lot of, what I want. And I'm not saying me, I'm saying that if I'm putting myself as the playtesters, they were giving me information that averaged my game out to be easier, to be more in line with status quo, more like what they're used to. And fortunately, I'm the type of person who knows that when a player is comfortable, when people are comfortable doing things in this game, that means that it's average. Average is good. Average is not what I'm going for. I'm going for excellence, and not in a whole, this game is better than anything you made. Excellence in its own way. Like, this game is good at being itself. And let's say everybody hates it. I would rather everybody hated it than everybody play it 2 or 3 times and like it. And when I say everybody, I'm talking about this, like your average player. The people that I want to impress are other designers, my peers. And I know that I'm not doing this as a business. It's not a business for me. I am not a designer who does this for money. Although I do like money for the designs, I'm trying not to compromise so that I can eat. I'm trying to make the best game possible, and hopefully people like it. And the people that I care the most about liking it are people who like heavy games, people who like games like I like games, people who I would consider my peers. I'm trying to make something I want to play. I guess that's what it comes down. The rest of that probably sounds offensive, but I'm trying to build something that I would love to play. And I'm also, whenever I think about people saying, "Oh, I loved your game," who does it mean the most for? Does it mean the same about everybody saying that? And that's not true. I wish it was true, but it's not true. Your average gamer who loves, let's say, games that I don't love, they love my game. That means less to me. In fact, that means worse. I'm not. This is going to sound counterintuitive. I am not trying to make games to make everybody happy. I'm trying to make games to make a certain small cult-like following. The games are going to be quirky. The games are going to be difficult to understand. The games are going to do things that could probably be done a different way. But the important part is they're done in a new way. You're not going to see some kind of like basic worker placement and it's all like the game is easy to understand and takes 5 minutes. If I make a game that takes 5 minutes, it better be an abstract and it better have very few components. My games are going to take an hour to learn, because I want to bring new concepts to the table. These games are going to sell a lot. They're not going to, your average player is not going to enjoy the feeling of sitting there for an hour. If you can't enjoy spending an hour to learn a game, then the games I design aren't for you. In the current climate of trying to be inclusive, I am all for inclusivity. But there's another aspect to it. I am also not trying to placate to players who don't want to invest the time in learning the rules. And there's a space for me in this hobby, and the space for me in this hobby is very small. And I accept that. I'm good with that. I'm not trying to do this as I'm not trying to make products. I'm not trying to survive off of this. It would be great if I did, but if I did, it would be non-compromising on that unless I change as an individual. And right now, the fact that on the cost when I heard that some certain Portuguese players were enjoying it, like Costa and Vital, liked the cost. Whenever they rated it high, and there was some other individuals that rated it high, that I consider my peers, that made me feel amazing. That made me feel like I knew what I was doing, because I was making a design for game designers and game players looking for something different, yet semi-familiar in the feeling, not in the mechanisms. So anyway, back to this. I'm ranting, and I probably said a bunch of offensive stuff for people, and I probably sound like a guy that doesn't want to sell any games, but the truth is, my audience is small, and I am a craft designer. I am a designer looking to make new ideas, and I'm not necessarily trying to make people, your average gamer, happy by making it easier for them to understand it. And I'm not trying to make it hard for them to understand either. I'm just trying to make it interesting for me and my game group and what I'm looking for. Some of the playtest ideas that the designers had would have been great if I was looking to head to Kickstarter and get regular Joes playing my game and rate it high and enjoy it. But them not knowing where I personally am coming from, that makes it difficult to give me the type of feedback I need. Although they did give me a lot of feedback that I needed, and almost all of it was good. And the only time I pushed back was in things that I was like, well, dude, to me, you were like, you're repeating yourself, and let's just get past this. Let me tell you where I'm impassable, and I'm not really that impassable, although I will push back. But I was just trying to set up barriers so that they could say, okay, so we won't tell them about this part. We'll just keep on going, because I was on a limited time. I was at 3 o'clock in the morning, had to get up at 7. We ended up at 3:30. And so some of that information, it was not needed. I needed some of the stuff that I needed. So anyway, so I tried to explain that on this thing. So anyway, let's go back to being the play tester that the designer needs, and also not trying to design their game for them. That, I think, is important unless they need that. And I think rarely they need that, because the fun part of this is designing. Telling me your preferences is okay. Like, I don't like this, or I did like that. That actually did help. Even though I feel differently, it helped me see that there's other people who might see this other way. Why am I doing it this way? And is it worth the pushback? Now, the funky thing about it is that Sarah's involved in the project. So Sarah being in the project, she has feelings about the types of people that she wants to play the game. So I have to take all of that into consideration. And of course, on one hand, I'm going to be crucial in guiding her in what is good and what isn't good, in my opinion, and that she should make up her own opinion and take in what she needs to take. But hopefully also that the experience of her being a designer, she can see what kind of feedback is best to give. And I bet she already does that well. Because she's been playtesting forever, and she's not coming at it from a designer standpoint before. Now she's a designer. So, not that she wasn't already a designer in all aspects, except for having a finished design, or a design that was halfway done. Anyway, so I have to average with her on what we want. My tendency is going to be to piss off your average player. I'm going to, more often than not, say that that's a player issue, not a design issue, such as analysis paralysis. And this is something I got into a discussion with KP on, and several other people on, about, as a designer, should you take in consideration analysis paralysis? if you don't know what that means when a player goes in their games, there's so many decisions that they take. You add time to their turn because they have to analyze these different problems before they can go and finish their turn. So the other players are waiting. Now, I think you should be aware of it, and you should, if you can, without changing anything, without changing what the game does and all that. If you can change some small things that doesn't change the heart of what you're doing to help that along, you should. But in general, it's a player problem, not a design problem. I don't come at this with every game is for every player. Now, I think every player should be able to, not because of any kind of like physical ailment that you shouldn't be able to play it. Yeah, of course you should make the game accessible to everybody. But just because it's accessible to everybody doesn't mean that it is for everybody. And the stuff that I work on, it definitely isn't. So me and Sarah come at this very differently. If a question comes up, I am not going to say, let's change this so more people will like the game. I'm not going to say that. In fact, will this piss off players? Okay. Why will it piss off players? I'll ask myself that, and maybe I'm going on to something new. If players are going to be pissed off because they haven't done this before, and this is a lot of new information to take in and a new way to do things, that doesn't deter me. In fact, that makes me want to explore it, because I want to go into new frontiers, and that also means that I'm going to fail way more often than I'm going to succeed. But when I do succeed, it's going to feel really good because it was done on my own. So with having Sarah on board, she might want more players to like it. So, we have to kind of balance that. I think about like Matchstick Girls. That's a design that will be published hopefully by Spielworks. When you think about like Matchstick Girls, it makes players very upset. I think that the game itself is not for everybody. In fact, it's for very few people. But the game does something very unique, does stuff that I haven't seen a whole lot of. So in that game and the cost, there's a lot of, I would rather the game do this. That's what people say. I would rather that I'm used to this. Why doesn't the game do this? Or I'd like it done this way. They start telling you what they would like in the game, and both of those games aren't like that. They're very specific to the type of players that might like it, where I think Corrupt City is easier for the average person to like it. And 1903 is also like that, and that's another game that's not published at the moment, and I don't have a publisher for it. So this tequila game, as the more and more I work with it, the more it's coming to, I don't think many people are going to like it. It's, maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm not giving my audience, if I have one, which I don't think I do, maybe I'm not giving them enough credit or giving myself enough credit, but I'm not making something to necessarily make people happy. I'm making something to be something new and something interesting, and trying to hit it from a very artistic, creative way, but being, of course, mechanical and being a game, it isn't necessarily, it's more of a craft than an art, maybe, or maybe it's some kind of mix between a craft and an art. So anyway, so on this rant about playtesting, I really have to think about me whenever I playtest other games and what I need to do to help them. I want to be the Rick Rubin to music production as a mode to playtesters versus modern than the older version. I don't want to design on top of their stuff, and I want to use that idea that if Food Chain was brought to me, would I, as it is now, and it's not designed in this world, they bring me Food Chain, they say, help me finish this game or playtest this game and tell me what it needs. would I be able to help food chain be itself, or would I be designing on top of it and fucking up something that is almost perfect? It's not perfect, but food chain is perfect at being food chain. And if you gave food chain to me, the old me would probably take out some things that I didn't like. And unfortunately, like Ryan Court, I played Pipeline early on, and there was a couple of things about Pipeline that I didn't like. Ryan Courtney is really good at not. He takes lots of feedback, and I think he's really good at not compromising because of my ideas. Even though I think they're really good ideas because they're mine, uh, would have changed the game. And the food chain you have now is very similar to the food chain that I saw then. Maybe some numbers are tweaked and some ease of use things have been changed, but I was designing on top of them as a playtester, and I shouldn't have done that. I should have saw. My feedback should be to help designers realize their own design and help them do that unless they need me for who I am. And that's not usually going to be the case. They just need someone to look at this game. And as much as you want to ask me, as much as I want to help you, I don't know, though, if somebody asked me, is this game any good, whether I should be blunt and serious about answering that. Because, like, if somebody gives me a game and it's not my type of game and I say, oh, this game is dog shit, and it is dog shit to me, that doesn't help them because it's not allowing the game to become all that it can be necessarily. But then that's a hard one because maybe it is dog shit. Maybe they need to hear that. Maybe no one's told them that and it needs to be worked on. I don't know. That's a hard one. That is really hard. That, I guess, would take a lot of politicking on my part to say, is this the best you could have done? No, that's not even good. Is this game what you wanted to present, maybe? And try to find out ways that I can actually help instead of hinder. And I'm not saying the playtesters yesterday hindered me. They didn't at all. They helped me a lot. Actually, all I've been doing is thinking for the last, it hasn't been 24 hours. Maybe it's been 17 hours. And probably 12 of it awake. The last 12 hours of me being awake, I've been thinking about a lot of the things that needed to be worked on or not. Things that I should push back on and say, no, this doesn't need to change. And of course, I need to take all these ideas to Sarah, get hers, and then us average all that together and make an amalgamation of what the game's going to be because of all this input. Anyway, yeah, I think that's a good... Hey, how's it going, man? I was just talking about playtesting and how it went, and it gave me a real new insight on what I need to do as a playtester, because I realized that me as a playtester, I've been a pretty bad one. Yeah, a whole lot to think about. And one of the big things to think about is the averaging of the game. Like, the more people you get, the more averaged the ideas become as they start coming to you, because it's an amalgamation of everybody's ideas. That's an average. So yeah, I'm very happy with the playtest, and there's a lot of ease of use things that need to be changed almost immediately, and I can't wait to talk to Sarah for us to have a sit down and fix some things that definitely need to be fixed that are hard to tell from a new player. But I don't know, did you hear what I was talking about when I was talking about food chain? If I would be, or what playtesters would do if they saw food chain and it wasn't published in this new world. You have food chain in front of you and you're a playtester. Could you allow food chain to be what it is? Like, food chain isn't perfect, but it's perfect at being food chain. And would I playtest out the perfectness? Yeah, totally. So a lot of the ease of use. I don't know if you were there for me. Well, I pushed back a couple of times on the when we talked about the mechanical part of the dealing with cards and stuff. And I had to push back on that only because I usually my stance is listen to all the feedback, act like all the feedback is good feedback, whether it's good or not. Just say it, just be polite and let everybody give their feedback and take it all in. And whether you use it or not, that's not the important part. Just being nice about it and not really pushing on it. But last night I really had a limited time there at the very end, and we really needed to end it, so I had to push back just so that they knew, like, hey, this isn't really something to play with. Let's just talk about other stuff so that we can get through this session, because it was going long. And unfortunately, I guess I should have known that when we went into it, that it was going to go late, and that I would rather have just sat there and listened to all of it. That would have been great. Yeah. It's interesting, and I think uh, it's one of those things. Like, as a playtester, do you take on the role as a developer? Do you take on the role as a helpful um, designer? Do you take on the role as someone who's trying to make this more accessible to other players? It's really difficult, and the more people you add, the more likely agendas will get in play. And not that that's bad. I'm not saying agenda like bad, because that usually connotates bad, but agenda as in I'm looking for more games that do things that I think are innovative, so here's the way I'm going to lean, kind of a thing. Yeah, and you know the auto pets thing, auto chest, auto pets. Yeah, so yeah, and that basically means that it's not the game that is. And not that it couldn't be taken out and we could play this whole other pick up and deliver game, but it's not that game. So, not that we couldn't start a new game with that, or just say this is a new game, no longer inspired by auto pets. But it's a interesting way to do action selection that hasn't been done before. Whether it's good or bad, it's better that it crashes and burns as something new than it works as something average, in my opinion. But that's because I'm a crash and burn type person. Yeah, it is what the game is. And in fact, I would rather take out pick up and deliver than take out anything that had to do with the programming action part, because the programming action part is the newest thing, and it is how to take auto pets and auto chess into the board game arena and start looking at roguelikes and their influence on a whole new genre of board games, and making new games that take this from the board game world. I mean the video game world, because the thing about video games is they'll do this new idea and a person gets to play that hundreds and thousands of times, or different thousands and people get to play this hundreds of times. So you have this thing that's been played so many times, and you can monopolize those ideas from them. I guess monopolize isn't the right word, but you can steal those ideas from them and take the good stuff because they've already worked it out, and then rebuild it and bring it into the board game world and make hopefully an amalgamation and come up with something completely different, because it doesn't feel like auto pets. Anyway, I'm just ranting. I thought I was going to work on the tequila game, but then I started talking about all this crazy. Uh, I want to be a Rick Rubin now um, playtester and help people develop the game that they want to develop. And I really enjoyed the playtest, and they really gave some great feedback, and it was awesome. But I think if I did that as a weekly thing, here's some things that I would change about the way that I do it. And it's already changed me as a person who looks at other people's games. It's made me realize that I need to help people become the best them. And if I was in their shoes and I saw something new, could I let it be new and help them make it better and new? But yeah, I really appreciate you're really on it. You really have been watching a lot of stuff to know auto pets and remember it. And hopefully, if you've played auto pets, I haven't played auto pets in a long time, and it's just a good little um, waste of time for me. Yeah, yeah, that's why Rick Rubin is who he is. Or here's the other thing. Here's the bad part about it. Let's say Rick Rubin was a amazing producer when he had his thumb on everything, and now his name just has to be attached to something for that to sell more units. So, what if Rick Rubin's Mystique was developed back then, and now Rick Rubin is just a name, and he gets put on artist stuff, and they make more money? It's this industry secret. So that's the my Rick Rubin conspiracy theory. So now, let's say like Metallica, when they made like Death Magnetic, they talk about Rick Rubin helped them develop their own sound back like when Ride the Lightning days and stuff. What if that was all just rehearsed and Rick Rubin was just kind of his name's on the thing, but they were he wasn't actually there. I have heard something like that, like come from like Slayer and another. I think it was, what was it? Was it Slipknot? There was some famous metal band that said that Rick Rubin was just the name and he didn't do anything in their album, but it helped sell units. So I'm not saying this conspiracy theory is out of nowhere. It's not like the moon landing kind of conspiracy theory, but it's a conspiracy theory nonetheless. So what if I'm building this whole idea based on something that isn't true? But that's okay. Many things have been built on stuff that's not true. Yeah, I know that's way out there. I'm crazy. The Rick Rubin conspiracy theory. Anyway, I'm going to let this go for now and chill out. I might come back and design here in a few, maybe 30 minutes or so. We'll see. Um, yeah, we'll see. Thanks for listening to me rant. And thanks for your input, definitely. And I hope that doesn't come off like I'm bitter about the playtest, because it was really good. The feedback was really, really good. It was just the interesting stuff where they were trying to develop stuff out of the game that were key elements that I was like, you're not helping here. You're actually, if I wasn't a stronger person, this would this would average my game out to be like, and I say mine, Sarah's not here, so I'm going to say mine. Mine and Sarah's game is something new and different, and if it sucks new and different, I'd rather it sucked new and different than it be average and the same. I mean, the same, but everybody loves it. All right, man. Thanks a whole bunch for showing up. Usually people don't show up. Occasionally, I have a couple of friends who show up, but not many, especially not if I'm ranting. But anyway, cool. I guess I'll see y'all in 30 minutes maybe, or see you in 30 minutes. We'll see if I get too tired, because I did get very little sleep. We'll see. Maybe my thoughts will change after I get some serious sleep. Anyway, see y'all later. See if I can figure out how to turn this damn thing off.